very much. So if you'd be so kind as to share what topics you'd like me to cover today, that would be great. I'm happy to address them as best I can.
Integrity.
Forgiveness. Shift. The power of faith.
One second. What was the third and fourth one that was?
The power of faith and shifting.
Shifting, okay.
Blackout.
Okay, good. All right. Oh, and our mission statement. Together, please. The global center for Christ consciousness is a spiritual center for students and masters on the spiritual path. We are dedicated to awakening the inner Christ and to creating a world of love, peace, joy, and abundance. Yes. All right, we have a good variety of topics brought up again, everything ranging from power of faith, forgiveness, integrity, and so on, several topics. It's very important for us to realize it's great that we gather like this, because while we're on earth, even though the three-dimensional experience, I don't want to just say the three-dimensional, everything in this universe, all dimensions are a dream. They're a dream. They're not heaven, as Yogananda says. We're not home this isn't our home. Or as Dorothy says, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. So, Wizard of Oz. Anyway, so this isn't it. This isn't as good as it gets. This isn't it. It's not even going to get better just like if we evolve a little. Change a few laws. Well, look how much better we're doing. Better economy. Guys, you can't get invested in this because it's still this world. It's still the universe. And the universe still has duality and polarity. Games. Just ego. The ego still infiltrates it all. So it's nice to gather. While we're in this nightmare, we gather because it becomes a happy dream. That we can do. We can turn this from a nightmare into a happy dream, mainly through love, kindness, service, compassion, right? Forgiveness, as we say. So that's how we do this. This doesn't just happen because you vote somebody in or whatever. It's not economy. We think it is, but it isn't. So when you realize that, you hold your center and you kind of allow shifts in the economy and you vote and do what you want to do, but you don't get as invested in it because you kind of recognize God is my answer. God is my question. God is my answer. And then you just don't get, as caught up in it all. It's a funny thing because I've talked about, it might sound like I'm being hard on, religion, science, politics, the unholy trinity of this world. Now, it might sound like, I'm being a little rude, whatever. The bottom line is these three institutions, when I say science, that's partly the medical world. And when I say religion, it's, there's variations of it. But generally, politics and science and religion, these three things, some of which look like they're looking for answers. Science isn't looking for God. They're looking to prove everything but God. Religion, of course, is about God, but is it? Because most people in their religions, when they go to their leaders and say, I had a vision, the leaders tell them it's the devil. So religion is looking, it's not to deliver you. Religion is designed to talk about God. Wouldn't it be great if we could? Well, I did. No, you didn't. They'll talk you out of having a God experience because they don't have one. And I understand. I feel for them. You're afraid. That's all. And Jesus comes to the earth and other teachers and masters, but Jesus, the master of masters, comes to the earth, tells them, you're afraid. You follow your guide. The voice you listen to is the voice of fear. He calls it the liar, the voice of the liar, the ego, the devil. You're listening to this other thing. The voice I listen to is God, love. And you're listening to this fear. Now, then they kill him, which confirms they're afraid of what he's saying. But they're not just afraid of what he's saying, they're afraid of what he's being. I do not want to imagine that we can be God embodied. That's what they were saying. We're going to kill the person that is so that we can wipe our brow and say, "Whew, that was a little too close." But is it the divine in them that was afraid of God experience or the ego? Clearly the ego. So these things, science, religion, government, it's an odd thing because they're like experts in their field. They call themselves experts. They know what's best. But all that ends up happening is that they know more and more about less and less till they have the day of epiphany where they go, "Oh my God, it's happening. We finally arrived at that moment where we know everything about nothing." But some days, got to give them credit. Some days the opposite's true. They also know nothing about everything. That's just me. Okay? So what if they can't give you answers? I'm sorry, I know it's upsetting to some people. No, it's good. They got the answers. Listen, we've been here for a long time. They've got cures for cancers and they won't even tell you. Why? Because somebody's making money. People, the world is living in fear, including religion. It's consistent that Jesus and others, when they were turned upon, it was even when we've talked about Lonnie in the Jesus movement and the Jesus movie, Lonnie, who was baptizing people and healing people spontaneously, it was the church leaders that turned on him. And they said it's because he's found out that he's a sinner. Well, really, what's his sin? He's gay. Oh, and they crucified him figuratively. So these institutions don't have the answer. God is the answer, but we can at least experience God in groups that are sincere. I don't know how many of them there are on I'm not going to tell you which ones are and aren't, because ego can infiltrate anywhere. Our job is to do our best as a group to just say no to that. But it's not just us as a group. We as individuals have to also say, not today, to those ego kinds of callings that happen in us. So think about this. In a group like this, the answers are kind of obvious, but do you believe in God? Yes or no? Yes. Do you believe in angels? Yes. Do you believe in multidimensional consciousness? Yes. Do you believe it's true that all things are within you? Yes. Oh, cool. Okay. So remember, you committed. So if you believe in the things you just said you believe in, then that means all dimensions are right here. Uh-oh. This is going to get dangerous, so watch. It's kind of fun, though. So when we delve in ourselves, watch this figuratively, when we turn our attention from out here, which is the distracting ego world, projections, when we turn it and go this direction, the first things you're going to run into, seek and ye shall find, and when you find, you will become disturbed, Jesus said. So you turn your attention here. Now remember, you just said, oh, the angels, everything's real. Right. So where are they? Oh, no, you just said it's all within you. So wait for it. You turn your attention and go this direction. You're not going to be like instantly angels. It's going to be your most surface level issues, then your less surface, like that. Now, some of us are on the path, are on the path, 50 years on the path, 8 lifetimes on the still, why is it happening that when I turn within, like when you fast, and I don't mean just food, I mean when you decide to set this world aside and go, no, there's something more, you're turning your attention. The first things you're going to find are the snags, the rough edges, and you're going to find negativity, even entities sometimes. Addictions, that's out here. Even your masks are on those outer layers. So some of you could ask about, shifting. There's all kinds of meanings to that. You turn and you go this way, you're going to find parts of yourself that you don't like. Now, if you endure and look at them honestly rather than, wait, I'm turning and finding things I don't like. Wait, who can I blame? Now you turned your attention outside again. And you can't find anything on the outside. You can see or perceive signposts, but not reality. So I turn this way away from the non-real to me. They keep talking religion, politics, government. They talk about the outside. You don't realize it sounds like they might even sound well-meaning. Deep down, all things that try to get your attention to the outside is called evil. meaning the ego. The ego cannot allow you to turn inside because you might find God. And at that moment, the ego has to just kind of retire for lack of work. It's not like it's destroyed like in Wizard of Oz, I'm melting. There is no it to melt. It just fades, believe it or not, effortlessly. Now, some people go, well, I've been on the path. I've not seen a lot of that effortless. When I'm fasting, I go through nausea, when I get headaches. When I'm fasting, emotionally, behaviorally, I got addictions call me. I got people that pick on me. I know, but listen, turn this way and you're running into the snags. You could be 99 and 9/10% pure and still have a snag. And the snag you find, the ego will put a magnifying glass in front of it to make it seem like you're far more messed up than you are. And what you'll do is go, no, I can't believe it. I thought I was spiritual. It got you. Now that tiny little percent that it magnified becomes 10%, which is a lot more than it was. It becomes 10 or 20, depending on how much you react to it. And that's that concept of Buddha being able to say, sit and watch these things dispassionately. Don't let them trigger you. Step off of the wheel. Because the wheel, cause and effect. So I react to this image and now it kicks in. And that's that concept of Job visiting God, metaphorically. Hi, God. Hey, Job. What's up? Oh, I see one of your children are on the path. So what I'm going to do, because I'm allowed to, because mankind is given the ego permission to speak, I'm going to hold a magnifying glass up and trigger them. I bet it'll work. God's going, no matter what you think, I'm going to bet on their light. And God's always right. Your light will eventually win. But does it win today? So the ego holds up the magnifying glass and Job finds all kinds of terrors. I was a good person. I can't believe this is happening. How is this happening to me? He's going through all these reactions. And if he gives in to all of that, he's now going to go from Job, who was losing material things, to Job, who's now in a very dark place because fear and guilt and shame are going to become magnified. Fortunately, Job, in the story, it's actually a book nobody and academics don't really know, theologians don't know who wrote the book of Job. But the book of Job was written by Melchizedek. But anyway, that's another story. So the book of Job is a metaphor. It's like a story of a mystic journey. But at the end, Job goes through the dark night of the soul. He loses everything. He's questioning everything, just like you will with a minor event today or a major event. This stuff is us turning inside, running into ourselves. So how much stuff is there? I wish I didn't have so much stuff to distract myself. Thanks for sharing. But apparently you do. How do we know that? Because it's hooking you. You can't have my hooks, I can't have yours. Some of you are like, I could walk through a wall of fire to save people in a burning building. Others are like, I hate matches. You can't handle this much heat. That doesn't make you better. It's just we have our different things. Your evolution is going to depend on your walking through those tests, those challenges. And it looks like I'm standing here and things are happening. And it looks like that. I get it. But what's really happening is I'm walking into myself. And those things that are happening are little bits of me. You still got a little betrayal. You still have a little this, a little anger, a little, whatever it happens to be. Low self-worth, financial issues, illness. None of these can happen if they're not in you. You guys said it's all within us. Well, that's how it is. Now, you also said you believe in angels. Well, where the heck are they? Why aren't they picking off with angelic arrows these little weird things that are in my energy field? And while I'm sleeping, so I don't have to hear bing, bing, So the angels should be protecting me. No. You have to get to that part of yourself where you find your angels. They don't just get to show up. So some people talk about, what it's all about, man. What are you doing lately? Oh, I'm really on the spiritual path. I'm really studying. Wow, that's great. What are you into? Oh, vibration. Everything's about you. No, it isn't. You don't just go, I think I'm going to hold the battery cables on my car and raise my vibration. You don't just raise your vibration. You have no vibration that isn't compatible to your consciousness. Your consciousness determines the vibration. You take a musician that knows how to play an instrument and you say, can you play, a certain note, C minor, whatever it is. The musician plays that note, but it was the musician who decided or chose how to play that note. Yes, I know how, or I don't know how. Well, if they know how, they play that note, violin or whatever it's on. They play that note. Well, that's the vibration. But the vibration they played still came from them, the chooser, right? So when we say, I want to raise my vibration, these teachers that use these fancy, cool terms, they have no clue of what they're saying. How do you do that? Well, there's an herbal formula I'll sell you. That will not raise your vibration. It could synthetically replicate raising your vibration. There's all kinds of things that can replicate changing your mind, your brain. Lobotomies will do it, but I don't recommend it. So what does it mean to change your vibration? Guys, you have to change your consciousness. Now, as I change my consciousness, here's what happens. It changes what I find when I go inside. And sometimes, frightening little things. I still have addiction. That's in my shadow. I still have anger. It's in my shadow. It's like saying it's in a layer of my aura. I turn within and I'm going to find those, even entities. You're not bad that you might have an entity, an attachment of some kind. They're parts of your experience and they're left hanging and they need resolved. So you walk into yourself and you say, get out. No vacancy. You see? You command. But what do you command? A new level of consciousness. Part of me used to be like, oh my God, addiction, entities. You have to say, if God is with me, what could be against me? You turn in, you go inside and you say, hey, out, move it, be gone. So you have to face those demons, figurative or literal, and cast them out. Now you get to move in further. Your consciousness is higher because you took it higher in your decisions, in your beliefs. You became something greater. Now, all of us, there's people saying, well, but I have a friend who sees angels and they're not even likable. Something in them has believed that they can reach that level. It doesn't mean they're saintly. It means that's a navigation that they found at some point in one of their lifetimes, and so it's their thing. Somebody out there is prosperous. Prosperity is another layer of these things that we go through. Poverty consciousness, more abundance. Yeah, but that implies that abundant people are spiritual. No, it means only that somehow they've penetrated that peace. That's all. It doesn't mean they're perfect. And besides, why are you worrying about how perfect or not they are and how abundant? What about you? So it can get to the point where we can just erase all of those snags. That's not a bad idea, because people live either in fear, in faith, or in knowingness. Fear, faith, knowingness. Fear-based people are the ones, I'm afraid of my demons, I'm afraid of my addiction. Now you might say, I'm not afraid of them. The fact that you have them means there's a trigger. There's something with those things, whether it's ex-husbands, ex-wives, whatever the story might be, the triggers. Those are my broken pieces, but that still represents fear. They're my hurts, my wounds. We use the word fear to kind of umbrella over all those things, but name it anything you want, the negatives of your life. But fear, faith, knowing. Fear, lack, illness, hurt, wounds, triggers, past life, stuff unresolved, childhood issues. That's all this level. Faith doesn't mean walking in faith of religion. Faith means I'm on the spiritual path either because I just got on the spiritual path, or I had a transformational experience that got me there. Whatever it is, I'm walking in faith, meaning greater faith in reality, truth. I'm not home, but I'm walking in faith. If it was walking in an absolute knowingness, we wouldn't have to call it faith, because faith implies I'm not totally there yet, but I'm believing, right? So do you walk in fear, faith, or knowingness? Now, some of us that are just cosmic individuals love to go, knowingness, that's me. No, listen, if you were in absolute knowingness, you would not be able to hold the particles of your body together because you would be so filled with light. I mean, that's just the way it is. Did Michael just say it's impossible to reach knowingness? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's almost impossible because your body couldn't hold itself together because you would be so bursting in divinity. What about Jesus? Jesus had to work hard to keep his body held together. So he's holding. Hi guys, how are you all doing? Oh, we're having lunch, holding. Oh, Matthew, that wasn't very nice. Make up with Peter, holding. Magdalene, nice to see you, looking good. Holding. There's all this holding, and then he finally gets crucified, stuck in the tomb, and he goes, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. And he bursts into light, and it imprints his burial cloth with his image, which would have been funny if he'd have went, hey, Wouldn't that be funny? Just like Jesus going, right? That'd have been cool. I'm just saying, could have been funnier. So we are journeying into our deeper parts. Now, the ultimate core, when you journey and find who you really are, it's the Christ self, the highest consciousness you can reach, as Yogananda says as well. The highest level of consciousness. So imagine Jesus attained the ability to say, I've heard about it, I lived all this, I've done lifetimes, I cleared, I'm here now. And not only am I in the core of my who I really am, my Christ self, this is important, I'm not interested in any other layer now. See, some of us go, I really love the Christ thing, but I kind of like this piece and this piece. You get to the point, which I pointed out in the last couple services, that concept of if you really want to make a change, you have to see the valuelessness of what you no longer want. You cannot stop eating, drinking, whatever your addiction, until you realize its valuelessness. Now, when I say realize its valuelessness, it really means heart and soul you get. This is not really serving where I want to be. It's serving what I thought I was, where I thought I was, and all kinds of reactions to numb. But you can't give it up. Any addiction, codependence, any addiction, until you recognize, wow, this is ridiculous. You have to see its valuelessness. That's part one. Part two, you have to see the value of something else. You can't just give up drinking. You have to see its valuelessness. And you have to see the value of sobriety. You can't just keep fighting drink. You have to see the value of something else. Does that make sense? Okay, now switch it to prosperity. Well, that's not my fault. My boss doesn't give me... Stop. It's a belief in you. If you didn't have your boss in your auric field as you go in, you just take your little Starship Enterprise and you fly it this direction, and you're going to find Klingons and other creepy beings that are messing with you. And some of them are low beliefs, low self-esteem, or low beliefs in prosperity I don't deserve. And it could be some erroneous assumption, program from being a monk. Well, I like that I was a monk. Yes, and you're still broke. So can you say, I'd like to be a prosperous monk? Yes, you're allowed. Well, I was a nun, therefore I tend to not have really joy-filled, passionate partnerships. Right, still getting none. So at some point, can you say, I want to be a nun with some fun? So let me have God and, is that allowed? I'm telling you, God has no issue with whichever one you do. God's only going to say, and are you happy? You say you want to have a little, play. Are you happy, or are you just reacting? I was once a nun and now I'm making up for lost time. That's not peace. It's still reaction. I'm going to make myself prosperous to prove to my parents, it's a reaction. You have to see the valuelessness of poverty. Well, everybody knows no, you don't realize if you have vows, you have an investment in those vows. Because if you break the vow of poverty that you made as a priest or a nun, and you suddenly allow prosperity, do you realize in your head, somewhere in your head, you actually believe you're betraying God to have money? You have to see that was valueless. It was not true. That's what I thought. That's what I assumed. That's what I was told. That's the program. But it isn't true. And you let that go. But you also have to see the value of prosperity. The one who became a nun and a monk is in this lifetime very spiritual, very devoted, and talks to people about God and meditation can also be prosperous, and remember to give that too. Give prosperity. Share it. Share your light. Share your extra funds, whatever you can. You see? So we're turning inside. And when I turn inside, I'm going to find all of my stuff. The initial layers, not so happy usually. And it doesn't mean you only have negatives. You can deal with addiction and still see angels, which is the next layer in. Generally, you can do one at a time because you're in one dimension at a time. And I don't mean literal third, fourth dimension, fifth dimension. I'm talking about figurative dimensions. You're going inside and you're going in through parts of yourself. So here are my masks. I wish I could see angels. You might want to deal with masks that are in the way. You see? You might want to deal with, any number of erroneous false beliefs, limiting beliefs. Let them pass, let them pass. And then you find deeper and deeper things. Don't just say, I wish I could have a vision of God. Then you have to see the valuelessness of seeing all kinds of other visions that aren't God. Like seeing yourself beautiful might be in the way. Seeing yourself as the opposite, ugly, it might be in the way. At some point, when you go to those initial layers, practice the surrender of them. This is what I'm seeing, but I'm giving this to you, God. I'm seeing an addict, but you show me who I really am. I am seeing attractive. Well, why should I give that? That's a positive. No, it's what you think is a positive. There is no positive negative duality like people think. Start with I don't know. Go inside. I don't know. I don't know. That's the fastest track to getting to the truth. Because if you say I don't know, God can show me. That's pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure God knows better than I do. The Divine Mother knows all of my strangeness, all of my limiting beliefs. And she's come to the world with us, albeit seemingly invisible. She's in the world with us, constantly reflecting every morning. How are you doing, honey? You still have that, the low self-worth? And so it is. And she reflects it. And we're like, dear God, Holy Spirit, Christ, ascended masters, angels, help me deal with this low self-worth. And they're like, what do you mean? This is you. This is the level you chose to be at. We can't take away your will. But I'm not willing. Yes, you are. You have to see the low self-worth and surrender it to have it replaced with something new. We keep asking the entities of the universe to fix our problems, but they can't force these changes upon us. They can only say, okay, we're hearing you. If you want our help, okay. You want to give that up? No, not really. Okay. That's all they can do. Jesus explains in A Course in Miracles, lots of people want to talk about how to become cosmic. He's saying the tact we're taking in A Course in Miracles is very unique. We have to show you the valuelessness of what you think is cosmic and so on in this world. When you see its valuelessness, the next thing we have to show you is what is really valuable. And then you'll naturally feel an attraction to that. But while you believe in the value of the valuelessness of things, and you're believing that they do have value, they can't give you the new life. So that's what it really means to die and be born again. Really, that's what it's about. Challenging for the average mind to accept that, but that's what it's about. To be born again, it's not just like some waving of a wand and bing, you're born again. Even if you had some epiphany of some spiritual kind, a meditation, whatever, a journey you're doing out in nature, fasting, whatever you're doing, some really beautiful, wow, it happens. It can't last if you haven't given up its opposite. You have to make room for God. You can't just say, God, here, now. You've got to make room. Sometimes it's called a yantra in some ancient traditions and some modern traditions, but a yantra. Yantra is like the word prayer. And if you don't know, the word prayer, when translated properly, although not properly, the word prayer means to trap God. Well, that's a weird word. Hey, God, how you doing? Look over there. But if you just alter the wording slightly to capture, you see, to grasp God, That's what prayer is. In the Far Eastern traditions called a yantra, it's like creating a sacred space in which God itself would find irresistible. And it would come here and be in that space, which could be my prayer space and my meditation space. So now, God's here. That's why they sometimes do diagrams, pentagrams in pagan traditions on the ground and do their little rituals in it. They're trying to capture some of the essence of something, whether it's good or evil. Obviously, it doesn't behoove a person's soul to try to capture evil, but that's what they do. They draw these pentagrams, do certain prayers, and try to capture in their prayers, chants, mantras, whatever they're doing. But the idea is, without the pentagrams on the ground, am I trapping God here? Am I capturing? Am I grabbing hold of God in my heart? See, you're allowed to look to the heavens, which is really right here. You looking up and saying, here I am. Inviting that presence down inside. Am I living in fear, faith, or knowingness? Knowingness, it's beyond conversation. When they say, Buddha, tell us about heaven, Buddha went, right? What do you think that means? Unspeakable, beyond words. Think about it. He wasn't going, be quiet. He was, here's my answer. Here's heaven, right? So can you experience the knowingness of God? Not really, not in an enduring fashion, because it's too much. That sounds like we're limiting it, but no, it's a good thing to say it's too much, because it's unspeakable. Your brain can't handle it. All these various religions, almost all of them have said in their own way, you cannot see the face of God and not be obliterated. Which, by the way, telling a 5-year-old that, they're like, I never want to see God, right? And so religions taught that. You'll be obliterated if you see the face of God. This is like, let's go. I'll do it now. Obliterate me, baby. Because what it means is the ego dissipates, disappears. The you that thinks will be gone. Well, no, I don't know if I want that. See? I need to see the valuelessness of my opinions as to when exactly I should be ascended, as to when God should answer my prayers. I don't know. And I don't know sounds like a very disempowering statement. There's lots of new agey people that are into wording sentences and they don't like that. I don't know. And that's why they don't like it, because their stuff is still ego-based. When we say I don't know, it doesn't mean, and I never will. It means the I that thinks it's thinking doesn't know anything. And that's true. You're learning more and more about less and less until you finally achieve that state of mind where you know nothing about everything and everything about nothing. You got nowhere. Your thinking can't do it. Einstein's statement, you can't fix the world with the same mind that created it. So let's just go, oh, I get that. So I'm going to practice this affirmation that says, I don't know. So if God comes to you and says, do you want to join me? I don't know. That's not what I said. When I say I don't know, it empties my cup. But then I would say, if I were you, but I'm willing to find out. And you're calling upon God. I don't know means of this world, but I am willing to know, willing to find out. And God just, and all that God is, when it hears someone saying that, I don't know, but I'm willing to, instead of bring my partner back, God, that's a funny thing. I thought that was going to last a lifetime. And I thought this was going really well. And they did this. If you're asking me, I'd like them back. God's going, no. It's a big surprise. But what's amazing to the spirit realm is when we say, if you ask me, I would say I want them back, but I actually don't know. Holy Spirit, Divine Mother, I don't know what is the right thing for my spiritual Christ highest self. And the mother's like, wow, we don't hear that very often. Blessed are you among men and women to say, I don't know. Cool. And now what is the highest can manifest as opposed to what I want, what I choose to try to manifest or make happen. So human beings get stuck in these kinds of things, what we think we want and so on. One of your questions, integrity. Integrity means to be integral, meaning to draw within and be true to yourself. So integrity isn't just an action. Who is being integrous? Who's being in their integrity? There's people that say the word all the time. Oh, well, I believe in integrity. And yet they're liars. I believe in integrity, yet they're deceivers. I believe in integrity, yet they're causing harm. Be careful what you announce about yourself. Look at me, I'm like the embodiment of integrity. You don't even dress in a state of integrity. You know, you say you're a spirit of love, and yet you dress in a state of fear, that, manifestation. I'm not going to get into details. But everything, if I'm in a state of integrity, what you see is what you get. This is what I'm about. The colors you choose, the accessories you choose, they all are a statement of what you're about. To say you're one thing and do another is not in a level of integrity. Does that mean other people should stand around and tell you you're a person without integrity? As soon as they do, they're exposed. And who's the one being in integrity? Your lower self? Your higher self? Your highest self? Which one is? See, so you can be fully in integrity and be a jerk if you understand that the voice of integrity is coming from the inner jerk. But in reality, integrity should mean the part of me that is going from fear to faith, to spiritual attunement. Let me work on that before I work in complete integrity in God, because that's a bit high. That's a vibration that is not known in the universe at all, not even in the highest dimension of the universe. In heaven, it is not a dimension. See, that's another thing that people could put out there. So really, my guides are telling me, and there's people out there doing this, heaven is the 84th and a half dimension. People are like, oh, that's so ridiculous, it can't be made up. It must be true. And they go with this. Wait, 84th and a half. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 8 and 4 is 12. 12 is the number often read and mentioned in the Bible. 12 apostles. That's it. It is the 84th dimension. And I just made that up, by the way. And then why the half? Because it means and then some. So they make these things up and people are like, okay, how do I reach the 84? Listen, heaven is not dimensionality. Dimensionality, dimensions, same root as dementia, by the way. See, that made you all excited, right? You're all like, oh. It's not like, 1 minute I was just looking for higher dimensions, but it's still dementia. Not me. Because it's still dementia. It's still of this world. It's still variations of activity of the mind. We are our origins from a place that is beyond dimensionality at all. A complete state of bliss and oneness. And to try to explain it, if God itself said, Michael, you have 60 seconds to talk them into wanting heaven by explaining it, I wouldn't know necessarily. I would just say, I don't know, tell me. Because there's no way to explain to you to make you say, I want that. Because it's beyond human comprehension. It's pretty? Well, yeah, Sedona's pretty. Yeah, but there's no roundabouts. Okay. You can try and manipulate the conversation, but I can't tell you in a way that would make you say, I know what I don't want, and now you're explaining heaven is what I do really want. I can't give you that half yet because we're still talking and living as human beings the world of what we don't want, the world of fear and faith. Faith means, in a sense, the hope, but the hope of what? The rest can't be described. I can tell you it's a state of bliss. And you know what some people do? Yeah, but what if I get bored being blissful? Never mind. See, I can't explain anymore because that's the human brain kicks in. Eternal bliss. Well, that's just like being eternally stoned. Like, how's it different? I can't explain it then. What if you're one with all, but I don't like some of them? This is what the human mind does. You'll be in a state of constant meditative bliss. Oh, God, that sounds like I'd get sore after a while just sitting there. You're not in a body. Oh, wait a minute. What am I then? Like a floating orb of light? That doesn't attract me. You'll be everywhere at once. That sounds hyper-stimulating. I can't explain that, so let's laugh about it instead. What we can do is explain, do you really want to keep living in fear? And we have to learn to convince ourselves, not talk ourselves, it's different, to really get, this is not attractive to me. And walking in the light of God, faith, I do like that idea. And that's where I'm going. So then let's move there. And when you walk in that greater life of faith, path of faith, you're going to see things that are at that dimensionality. While I'm still believing in the value of lower dimensionality, the initial parts of myself, I'm going to experience them. Some of them are going to be, I'm very kind of clear, but there's a little snag, little lesson once in a while. That's going to happen, even if you're years onto the path. It's okay. Don't try to impose perfection on this bizarre maze that we live in. So go pursue. Fast when you see this stuff happening. Forgive when you see this happening. This stuff here at the lowest level is your crucifixions. You want resurrection? That's the next level, the path of faith. And that's you resurrect. Resurrect what? You come out of the addiction, not with chewing your nails. You come out of it going, wow, what a weird dream was that? Like it has no interest in me. Not only does it not have a place or interest in me, I love the opposite. I really get it. What if you slip? Party weekend. Or you go back and date that person you know was unhealthy. Then that's what you've done. You've slipped, oops. And if it were me, I would say, dang it, that means part of me still finds that attractive. What attractive? An abusive partner, a cheating partner that said, no, this time I mean it. Just laugh and say, get behind me, Satan, metaphorically. Don't actually say that, but just move aside. Here's an addiction. Well, but listen, you have no real purpose. We can make you feel more relaxed, but it doesn't work because as soon as you fade away and the effects fade off, I'm back to anxiety again. So you're not actually a solution. But love you, mean it, peace out, bye. I'm going here. Faith. My faith in who I am. My faith in love, forgiveness. That's my resurrection. That's how I get it. But you can't jump from being in the mess to, I want knowingness of God. I want that second one, resurrection, peace, love, joy. You have to realize if you keep trying to be spiritual, if you keep trying to be forgiving, I'm trying so hard to forgive, you can't enter the second stage where you're loving and forgiving if there's still some residual value in this other. There are some people you would like to forgive, but a part of you is going, not all of it. I'm not going to, they say, I forgive, but I won't forget. That's a weird affirmation. That's like saying, but I'm going to keep my eye on you. Who? That person. What kind of person? A bad person, a hurtful person, which means they're in your field again. You see what I'm doing there? Now you've planted them again. Anytime you start to journey and get on the path, you're going to run into them again. If not the literal person, the thing. And I'm not saying this is easy. It is ultimately easy, but not while we think the world still has a value. You see? You can put somebody in office and they could be the best, they could be great, but there's a part of us that goes, but I'm going to keep my eyes on you, which means they're never allowed to be at peace. They're never allowed to fully channel the presence of God. Your physician, well, I guess I need the surgery. And I guess, I really don't like surgery. I really don't like the medical association. And you have a list of reasons why they're corrupt and crooked and so on. And you're going to go into, a sleep and have them cut on you with a blade and think none of it's going to go wrong. It's more likely going to go wrong because of that stuff in your field. And the surgeons are bound to manifest your stuff. Believe it or not. They're like, well, that's funny. I've had 99 successful surgeries, but your energy field's saying, cut me now. Okay. This is psychically what's happening. You could be like, I want love and self-worth, my relationships, but if it's in your field, I'm a little afraid of rejection. The person you hire is going to have to rub up against that rejection issue. They're going to have to bring it up for you. And then you're going to think, God, I was so spiritual and I shouldn't have let them in. They're bad. It's they, and that's perfect. Because as soon as the ego allows you to label a them, they're outside, and now you're 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times worse off. Because you're back to the outer. And the great masters, awakened ones in history, and especially one like Christ, it can't even entertain the thought of something on the outside having power over them. I'm not trying to contrast that you're not as good as them. They were here too. They just eventually said, man, I totally get this. I totally get this. Look at this, and the first step is to start weaning yourself off of talking about them. That doesn't mean you're evil if you do. You slipped. But you're going to talk about them. And then you're going to cut back on that and start realizing the focus goes this way, and there's parts of you that are still wounded, which is going to tempt you to go, this hurts, I'm going to go back to them. That doesn't hurt so much. Then you come back to this again, and you start getting used to it, and used to it, and used to it. And then you're purging, you're uprooting this root, and this weed, and that weed, and these things, up, out. And you're cleaning up. How long you take to do that, it's called free will. How long do you want to take? Then inside more. And this time I got in far enough, I connected with angels. I had a vision. I had a near-death experience, and I saw this and that. Wow, cool. Now that's very cool. You got to touch on some of the higher things. You go from lower self to higher self. Not highest self yet, but higher self. Jesus in the highest self was able to walk in a constant knowing of the Divine Mother and her will for him. What would you have me do today? There was no resistance, no things in the way. But even if something tried to get in the way, he showed us what to do. Get behind me, Satan. Or if it were up to me, I'd love the easy way out, but no, let God's will be done. He taught us how to deal with those things that try to get in the way. It's fabulous. It's beautiful. But we're supposed to be learning to live this each day. You're going to slip. Starting today, man, I'm totally devoted in internal only. And that's nice. It's nice, but come on. It's okay. And if you slip, your job, if you want to know the middle group called resurrection, you have to know forgiveness. You can never resurrect while somebody is still held guilty, you or them. Resurrection comes from, I got it. That was an image of me. Love, forgive self and them for mirroring it. And then surrender to God and come into that second room, that second area. And there you find, what is this? It's called peace. You can sleep better. You recuperate faster from ending of relationships or illness. Because you just live, you walk in this light. It's fantastic. There are perks to having that consciousness. Once you really get it, you can see now there's less chance going back. When you're new in your recovery from, 12 steps from earth program, when you really get that, there's less and less likelihood of this ever appealing to you again. Does that make sense? So you go from, and that is a microcosm of knowingness of God. You see? We can have glimpses of God. How? When we integrate that, no longer blaming others, learning to forgive them, forgive myself, landing in this place of resurrection where I say, I'm coming out of the tomb of self-loathing and so on. What would you have me do? And God could say, let's just double check. Any attraction to any of this? No. And even though there's pieces, the Holy Spirit will go, we'll come back to that later. We'll circle back to that. And she knows just when. About 5 months from now, there's going to be somebody who walks in, also a brunette, blonde, or whatever, and they're going to be like, one of them, because that's your pattern, that's your weakness, and then you'll fall again, and we'll talk. But in the meantime, let's celebrate that you made it this far. Nice, isn't it? Yes. And you have these epiphanies and ahas, and, it feels like I'm there forever, and then this. But watch, when it happens that you have these great images, reflections of you being on the path, please be careful. It's not an accident that when you slip, you're going to overly beat yourself up. That is the ego infiltrating even your attempt to try to bounce back. It doesn't want you here. It wants you here, and miserably so. You try to wake up, whether it's now working at it or after you slip. Let it be what it is. It's not easy. I mean, I know this. I do it all the time. Bounce back. But there are times when I say, I'll just pray and say, I'm just going to say it because it feels honest. I don't know that I'm bouncing back so easily. I'm still feeling a little of this. I'll just own it. I'm feeling like I can't let myself off the hook too easily. If that's how I'm feeling, I'll just say it. Why not? What are you going to spontaneously combust for being honest? No. And if you did, that'd be great. Because you'd reach higher levels of consciousness because you died in a state of integrity. Wow. Not something that'll be on a plaque on a morgue somewhere anytime. You died knowing you were doing the right thing. So remember, to walk in fear means we're walking with our own darkness and shadows and demons and addictions. How much does that apply to you? Is that 10% of you? 50%? Forget knowingness, the absolute knowing. Just start with the dark stuff. Are you walking in that dimension? Then that's what you'll experience. The dimension you reach comes from, and the vibration you are comes from what? Your consciousness. It has to. There's no synthetic, you can't wear a vest of higher consciousness. Man, I put on this coat and it even had the words higher consciousness, and it doesn't work. It's not a raiment, a vest, that you can put on. It's a consciousness. You either are it or not. How do I get to the fifth dimension, Michael? This guy's selling me some herbs that say, dunk it in tea and drink it 5 times a day for 10 days, and I reach the fifth dimension. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're just $50 less money in your pocket. And I'm not putting down the things that people do. Have fun. Do what you want to do. I'm just telling you, only consciousness can change consciousness. Things of the world can't change things of the inside. Consciousness. Your consciousness changes by your epiphanies, passing your tests and ahas and going, wow, that has no longer an attachment in me, and this does. Seeing what's valueless, seeing what's valuable, that's what's going to take you. And then there's a shift. Once you shift, your vibration is higher and the higher dimensions are accessible to you. Well, I heard that if you take a certain something, you reach higher dimensions. No, you just reach other dimension variations of this dimension. You're still in the ego world. Yeah, it's cool. Color pictures and, you can see words coming out, you can smell sounds and, all your senses get heightened. That's really cool. Except it goes away when you stop taking that thing. And it was not real anyway. You want it to be real, it has to be consciousness. And nothing but love and forgiveness can change consciousness. Pass your tests and you'll find, how did I get here? When people say to me, and I'll close with this, when people say to me, and I'm not bragging on myself, people say, well, how do you do this? How do you know these things? One thing I've known since I was young was I'm sincere. And I know that my sincerity to want to help people has actually been part of what gave me permission to access those higher dimensions. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter if you agree the way I look, I don't look, all that's nice and for you, great. What I knew, no matter a person liked me or didn't like me, I always knew my sincerity was there. I'm in the right place in here. And I know that that gave me some access to higher dimensions. Even if I screw up once in a while, they cannot, no being of spirit or body can ever say, no, you was totally insincere. That part I know, and that part I feel comfortable having known. You see that? So watch for those inconsistencies, those inner conflicts, and try not to judge yourself for them. You want to raise your ability to access that? Where's your sincerity? Do you really want to know? Well, no, it's a fad. It's an exciting thing. I want to sit, in a circle on the Red Rocks and chant. Yeah, but why? Well, because it's fun. I'm going to hang out with other people. So that's the highest you want. That's the highest you'll get. I've always known there is a God that answers prayers. Therefore, if I pray, I know my answers are getting there. And because of the sincerity, the mother can speak to me more directly. I can stand and you can say, can you talk about this, and then it just happens. That doesn't come from a talent of some kind. It doesn't come from an academic training. I don't sit at home and try to memorize speeches, which should be pretty evident. It doesn't work that way. So I just know for me, you have to ask yourself, what is going to be my talent, my way of tethering to that higher consciousness. What is my gift? Well, I'm extra intuitive. I'm extra sensitive. I'm a vision person. I'm a seer. Whatever is your thing. I'm a parent. I'm nurturing. Whatever are some of those gifts you have, those things can help you tether to that higher level. So let those gifts be used by you. And you say, I'm a very mothering, nurturing, compassionate person. Good. Let that take you here. How? By not acting contrary to yourself. You said you're nurturing, loving, compassionate. So when you slip, why don't you apply some of that on yourself? Well, I didn't know I could apply. I thought it was just for others. Oops. Now you have another link, another tie, cord, so to speak, to God. Okay? All right. Please take a few centering breaths. Relaxing, breathing. Some ask Jesus, when will we find God? When will we reach heaven? And he answers, when you want nothing else. And there's a story of a monk, we'll call it a senior monk, a master, a yogi, and he has a chela or student come to him, a seeker. How can I find God? How can I reach oneness, attain heaven in consciousness? And the master takes the student into a lake, submerges him. And the monk, of course, is very accommodating. Oh, wow, I'm being baptized. He goes underwater, sits underwater on the bottom of the lake, and he's holding himself in position, just sitting in the traditional, like, I'm opening my hands, I'm imagining my heart open. He's doing all these cool things to make sure, wow, it's how cool this looks. Then he starts to get bored and wonder, how much longer am I going to be held under here? Now he's going from, look how cool I am. I'm doing a spiritual practice. Now he's kind of annoyed, concerned. Pretty soon, he's needing air. He can't breathe. And he's noticing the master is actually still holding him under, forcibly holding him under. Not just submerging him, holding him under. Now he wants air, and he's trying to get out, and the master keeps holding him under. Now he's fighting for air, and the master holds him under. Gets down to the last second when he will not live if he doesn't get air, and he forces himself up, and he's coming out of the water, breathing hard. And the master said, when you want God that badly, that's when you'll find him. That said, take a moment and look at yourself. Just take the last week or month. Look at any times you slipped, verbally, mentally, behaviorally, personally, to yourself or others. This is the dimension of fear. If you did any of these things to others, yourself, whatever, offensive, defensive, it is the dimension of hell. Please understand that. You were still finding yourself attracted to that realm. Please, don't fight it, deny it, minimize. Just own it for a moment. If you own it, you can turn it around. Still attracted. Yeah, but I wouldn't have been if only. Stop. Just, it happened. There's still an attraction, or you wouldn't have gone there. But it is the dimension of hell. It is the realm of crucifixion. Father, Mother God, how insane I've been to to participate in such anger, hurt, hatred, rejection, betrayal, backstabbing, etc. Whatever it was. How ridiculous getting into the politics of stuff, resenting authority like medicine. That's all the realm of crucifixion. And I don't accidentally slip and find myself there. Other people didn't pull me there like it seems. I see that I have a bit of an attraction to that. And it's not healthy, and it's not what I really want. So I ask you, God, not to forgive me. You've already done that because this isn't in your perspective. But I'm asking you to help me to be as forgiving as you are towards me and others. Immediately, my vibration begins to change because my consciousness is changing. When my vibration changes, the vibration starts attracting me to a different place. So I'm naturally feeling light, buoyant, and I'm just rising out of hell. But can I believe that this is possible? If I don't believe it's possible, I'm going to anchor myself back because I find it valuable to believe that it can't be that easy. Well, no, I'm going to go for it. I feel buoyant and light. I am responsible. I take responsibility. I'm just not going to destroy myself over it and crucify myself. I see it. I'm giving it to you, God. I have the right to say, I will to rise above these attractions, addictions, and lift from your lower centers to your heart. And you can't lift to your heart unless you understand that's where you can have a healthy attraction. I am attracted to my heart center. I am attracted to being in my soul. There is a value in my being prosperous, healthy, more peaceful. Yes, I completely see that. And the other part of me that fights that and or chooses the other is the ridiculous part of me. It's not the real me. It's like a puppet of me. And we rise into our heart to this place where there's a greater authenticity, love, resurrection. From this place, as I hold this space, do I feel an attraction to blaming others, resenting others? If so, I drop to that outer realm, darker realm, lower realm. But if I can say, you know what? No, not today. Today I choose the light of God. I will to be free. Now I'm in my heart, my soul, in a state of forgiveness and resurrection. Not only am I in this place, all the people that have been related to my hurts, wounds, things that kept me anchored to the other, I bless you with this peace that I feel. Doesn't mean I won't potentially have twinges of stuff come up, but right now, I am in my heart and soul, and I am channeling a blessing from God in the highest heaven, a blessing of love and freedom. Be at peace, my brothers and sisters. Even those who seem to have wronged me, be at peace. This affirms who I really am. This affirms and confirms and makes permanent my resurrection. And as I experience enough resurrection, an authentic level of consciousness of resurrection, something else will happen. And that is my ascension back to God. For all this, the validity of it, the realness of it, the authenticity of it, I give thanks. All of us, together in this experience, but also ourselves and the others that we've imagined here, all of us are rising to a new level of consciousness, which then raises our vibration. And for all this, we give thanks. And so it is. Just take a moment, let that integrate a bit more. We're going to do our closing prayer in a moment. Just let that integrate. What did you get from that? What did you learn from that? What did you experience from that? Soak that in. Yes?
It's all practice. Continuing.
It's a continual practice of rising to higher levels of consciousness. Absolutely. Who else had there? Yes.
How do I know that I'm still attracted to the fear realm? Because I'm reacting to it.
How do you know when you're still attracted to the fear realm? When you're still attracted to it? How do you know? Because you're still reacting to it. You're still, right? If it's still happening, I must have some attraction to it. It doesn't mean you're failed your test, but it's showing you the attraction. It shows you the thing, the symptom. What you do with it will show you whether you said, not today, and rose to another level, or oops, and you engaged again. Anyone else? Yes?
I can practice my values on myself.
Yeah. Yeah, related to the outside, you can practice your values on yourself and in your own life, right? Which is actually the only place you can practice it. But that's the ticket. I have meaning and value here. So I really need to be practicing these values in my own life. Because if you can't see it, your value in yourself, how are you going to get it anywhere else? And you'll find all kinds of people willing to say, and so it is, if you don't value yourself. Lots of people will reflect that. And another one over here, yes?
I really enjoyed the metaphor of fasting from bad behavior.
The metaphor of fasting from bad behavior, yeah.
Code.
Right. Fasting was never supposed to be a food thing. It was always supposed to be a consciousness thing. But humans, they make it as mundane as possible. Jesus says if you fast for 10 days, you will ascend to heaven. And I went 10 days without listening to music. I thought that was going to get it. No. Who told you that? You just make stuff up. Don't eat food. Well, food's not even real. How could that be a part of your deepest level of fasting? Right? I mean, fasting means technically your ego. Oh, that doesn't sound fun at all. You expect me to not listen to the voice of it? No, I expect you to just try. Just to get used to seeing that you have the power to say, yeah, I feel my stomach's hungry, but I don't have a stomach nor a body. So fill me with your spirit, God. Try it. And then good, I made it through that moment. And then here comes some waves of memory of abuse. Does that feed my soul? No. So let's look at it. Let's apply love, forgiveness, whatever happens to be right for you in the moment. Let it go. And you passed another test of, fasting. Jesus in the desert, yes, he fasted, food and water, the whole bit. But the ultimate fast is one you heard about, where the ego appears and tempts him with all kinds of distractions. And he says, that is not what feeds me. So no to all those things that the ego's trying to say. You know what you really need? A TV with a ball game and a, six-pack. And Jesus would have went, oh, I didn't realize that was the answer. No, he's like, you got to be kidding me. The least valuable things are things of the body. I'm not criticizing the body. I'm saying it's the least valuable things because you're not a body. You are a spirit. So fast the things of the outside so you can get a bit of a faster track to the inside. All right, thank you. We're going to take up our collection and do our closing prayer. Please, folks, just be as generous as you can be. And I know a lot of you have been shifting that, and we really, really appreciate that. There's a prosperity prayer. It's on your papers in front of you. It's also posted online. Hold your prosperity blessing, in your heart as we say it. Hold your donation to your heart. Realize what you put in the bags are your love offerings for today. The baskets are just for any extra you can share for people of special needs that we help or some of our special projects. Hold your love offering, fully intenting what you're saying. Together, please. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give and all that I receive. And so it is. So God bless you all for being with us. Please stand for our closing prayer. How are you feeling overall? Today made sense? Applied? There's a lot of people a lot of people every week that go, I don't understand how it happened, but you were talking about exactly what I was going through. And they get confused. Were you actually picking up on yes, your stuff. You as a person are that important. Or were you talking to everyone? Yes. Or was it for yourself? We're in this together, and that's the beauty of it. God, self, and others. That's the perfect channeling. You allow God's message to come through you as a vessel, as a vehicle, whatever, and for others, taking into consideration what God would have me say, how I say it, and what others need to hear. So someone could unbeknowingly sit in the room or online and not realize that there's this much intention of really wanting some answers, and it's enough. That God will go click, 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 and it'll come through for you. And sometimes I've made up just the most arbitrary examples. For example, if da-da-da-da-da, and somebody will go, hey, that's me. Just this morning, I was lost in the woods, chewing on pine needles to survive, and saw 3 deer run by, and he used that as an example. And I try to use arbitrary ones, and somebody will go, wow. One of the strangest of all was the time I shared a story about the Red Baron in the First World War. A story about the Red Baron, which I won't go into, but I talked about how he was this master pilot, an ace that killed more people than anybody, and yet he didn't die, but he took a bullet in the head, but he didn't die. But somehow it changed his brain, and he said he couldn't do it anymore. And because he lost the edge, he got shot down and died. But how is it that a bullet affected his brain to where he said, from then on, when I saw other pilots that I shot down, I could see their fear in their faces when they were crashing. He started tuning into that. It's like, oh my God. But I ask you, did the bullet affect his brain like they think? Or did his mind already change, I'm tired of this, and manifest the bullet? You see? I shared that story. And a couple people came up afterwards and said, he was our great-great-grandfather. Now, what are the odds? I could just make some arbitrary thing and somebody goes, oh, that was, wow. So understand, this is supernatural stuff that we all are manifesting because we are, in fact, multidimensional beings. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Peace be with you all. If you'd like to participate in the group prayer,